Howdly doodly, every pony. Yeah. Howdly doodly. Okay, so we're going to be covering some Ben Shapiro videos. I turn it down for y'all, but I can't hear myself. So anyway, we're going to be covering some Ben Shapiro videos. He's had some takes, and he got wrecked by Neil deGrasse Tyson, which was pretty fucking funny. So we're going to be checking that out. We're also going to be talking about the transracial meme. That's another big one. It's an interesting one because it comes up a lot. I see it on my timeline all the time, and so we're going to be checking that one out. Providing kind of a counter argument, which might lead us to some uncomfortable conclusions, which led to a meltdown on Twitter that we had last week, which was really fucking fun. Hopefully purged enough of those fucking morons from my life, and I won't have to deal with them anymore. That would be great. But if not, it's whatever. It's a whole thing. But we might as well kind of get into it. I wanted to get started around midnight. Hopefully not be, too far into the weeds. Like not, have this go on forever and ever and ever. Okay. I guess we'll let Paris Bright Swarm do its thing. I was so proud of this fucking album. So, there's that. But there's this argument against transracial that I've been kind of workshopping. I've been trying to send it around to different people, but I haven't had a response yet. And it seems to be that the majority response that I get from people is just like, oh, well, transracial is just kind of like a meme question. We're not even going to entertain it or whatever. But the thing is that if nobody provides an answer to these bad faith questions, it seems that people have a tendency to just kind of run away with it. And then it becomes a dominant narrative eventually. So I feel like somebody needs to counter the transracial thing. I saw Destiny try to. Somebody came on his stream and he tried to provide like an argument against transracial, but he had a lot of trouble with it, it seemed. I've sent him an email, but he hasn't responded, of course. I did send a DM to Know Nothing TV, and Know Nothing actually got back to me and said that it was an interesting argument, but that he was going to digest it and get back to me on that and see what he could do. And so I'm going to give you all the same argument and see if one of y'all could come up with a counter argument that would combat it, and I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it's solid. I don't know, but I've thought about it a lot, and I need some challenges to it in order to steelman it the best I can. But we will get to that later. Now we are going to talk about something that we tried to talk about last stream, but I had a catastrophic fucking technical breakdown of my equipment. It was a soda and motherboard clash situation there, so we weren't able to get to that. But we are now on to that. We are going to talk about Neil deGrasse Tyson talking to Ben Shapiro, which is it's oh god, so many fucking memes. It's so good. It is so good. So let's check this one out, okay?
It seems like the left is militating against the advent of science. One of those areas is the area of transgenderism.
Militating against the advent of science. Okay. He's wearing a yarmulke. I just want to put that one out there.
The argument that is typically made by gender theorists is...
I just think it's really funny whenever religious people be like, we champion science. Science such as the invisible man in the sky that worries about where we put our penises.
That gender is entirely separate from sex.
There are people that say that, but I don't think that's true.
You've seen the argument made that it makes no difference on average if men are strong.
Our favorite rhetorical extremist, Ben Shapiro, for sure.
Than women are, and that if we were to allow transgender women to compete with non-transgender women, then this would somehow not disadvantage biological women. And this...
I don't know the correct answer to the sports question because I don't give a fuck about sports, to be honest.
Seems to me absolutely ascientific, that if we're actually going to have a discussion about gender and sex, that should be based in data, which suggests that mammals are, in fact, binary in terms of their sex, unless you have
in terms of their sex, sure. Typically, there's a bimodal distribution, which means that there are males and females. People fall into the binary most of the time. I don't think that this is disputed by anybody.
Intersex.
Maybe idiots on Twitter, but not like real people with actual thinking brains.
Birth defects, typically, or genetic defects.
I'm happy to opine on this.
What do we got?
This only matters because today we segregate nearly all sports by gender. Otherwise, why do you even give a shit? What someone identifies with. We live in a free country, and with consenting adults and people free expression of who and what they are.
Man, on adult level, I agree with you. I think it does matter what you teach your children.
Okay, but then, like as I said before, it does matter what you teach children, and you should be teaching children the truth. So I'm not really sure what his point is.
And so there's the matrix of what you are biologically, how you express yourself, who you choose as a sexual partner. If we actually live in a free country, as we tell ourselves, people's freedom to behave in any of those ways should not concern you at all. Nor are they requiring that you behave that way.
I love this, though. And the reason why I love this so much is because you can, I don't know if Neil deGrasse Tyson is read up on trans issues and is able to get down into the nitty gritty or whatever, but I just love the baseline of who gives a shit. I love that the most. That's really, really good stuff.
Okay, this is for their own freedoms, because we live in a free country. Now.
And it feels like he's tailored this argument specifically for Ben Shapiro.
What is unresolved here is, what do you do with sports? It's unresolved.
True.
And I've followed that closely, and I don't see any meaningful solutions to come down off of that. We know that hormones manifest differently in different people, and this is the whole thing with steroids. Steroids are hormones, right? And we rallied against steroids in professional sports because it gives you an undue advantage. So I've tried to think of what the future of sports would be in the world of a gender spectrum. And it may be, you don't specify whether it's a male or female sport. You just take measurements of what your hormonal balances are. And so you compete based on your hormonal. This is thought I had. I don't know.
So NPR, a taxpayer-funded entity, is now pressuring Facebook to suppress Daily Wire and my Facebook page especially.
I muted it on my end, but obviously y'all can still hear it. But anyway, what I love about this so much is that he's saying, maybe he's actually exploring a way to segregate sports outside of gender, which is really neat. I personally think that we should bring steroids back. We should let people do all of it. Doping, steroids, we should bring cybernetics into it and shit like that. And then you can have two leagues. You can have the normies that are just doing it on the merits of their physical ability, and then you have the inhuman fucking half robot monsters that are out there cranked so full of steroids and packed with red blood cells and all this other shit and just cybernetics and robot parts and everything, and they're just they have this like a baseball field that's made out of like an entire county, like that scene out of Twilight where the vampires are playing baseball and shit, and it's just be these inhuman monsters just cranking 400 and 500 yard baseballs, and this just dude with like a robot arm whipping the fucking ball across the plate at like 200, 300 miles per hour type of shit. That would be bad to fuck ass, right? So we have like the superhuman side, and then we have the normie side. That would be based as fuck. That would be a sport I would watch.
I don't know where it's going to land.
The WNBA won't be in business for very long if that's the case.
Well, the WNBA wouldn't exist at all if we didn't segregate sports based on gender. Like, duh. Ben Shapiro's like, he tries to be funny, but he's such a fucking idiot, dude.
Just be, you'd have to find some way to compete people against each other if you still care that sports is an interesting activity.
I guess
Right? Who gives a fuck about sports, right?
it's the area where it does come up in a non-sports area.
Yeah, tell me, 'cause I don't know.
So it would be, you talk in your book about the education of children and teaching children about science. And right
Yes.
now, children are being taught about the quote-unquote gender spectrum, which is not scientifically based. That is a theory-based idea.
True. That is true. It is like theoretically, like, because gender is a question of like social norms, like what is, what we perceive as a society. Gender is separate from sex in that fashion. Like, you can't physically observe gender. Gender is the internal understanding of sex. So, I mean, he is correct when he says this.
No, wait, hold on. People express themselves on a spectrum. Mm-hmm. So you learn that.
That's a social
sure.
point, not a scientific point.
It's
meaning we express ourselves
hold on.
based in different languages. Is that something you teach in science class, or is that something that you teach when you're teaching language?
So whether the fact that people want to express themselves on a spectrum, on a gender spectrum, whether that fact
this is so fucking good,
is something you want to put in a sociology class or in a science class, maybe that remains to be determined. But it is a real fact about real society.
Well, of course, nobody's denying that people identify.
Of course, nobody's denying that. I just love how Ben Shapiro's stuck in this position where he's just all like, fuck, this isn't some dipshit college student. This isn't some, idiot teenager off the street. Fuck, I'm dealing with somebody that actually has a brain. It's funny now, we've had Neil from BBC and now Neil Tyson completely crush Ben Shapiro.
How they want to identify.
He's just made an enemy of Neil's.
So
the question is, what is the relationship of that to biology? Meaning that the argument is made that trans women are women, for example. And what that seems to mean is that trans women are identical to women. Now, people want...
No. I don't think anybody actually says this, that trans women are identical to women. There are trans women that are indistinguishable from women, but I think that everyone recognizes, as far as I understand, everyone recognizes that a cis woman and a trans woman grow up with two very different experiences. I'm pretty sure everyone recognizes this.
I want to say trans women are not biological women. Obviously, that is the case. But people don't seem to want to say that.
So don't want to say what?
Women are not biological women.
Okay, but okay. So yes, we are recognizing that trans women are not biological women. The problem is that the only people that say biological women are trying to put a wedge between women and trans women for usually nefarious reasons. Usually to be like, no, you can't, participate in whatever activity. You can't like go to the bathroom in this particular room because you're, by default a rapist because you either have or once had a penis and that kind of shit. That's why biological woman is almost exclusively used by TERFs.
And obviously that is the case. But people don't seem to want to say that. Although that is obviously scientifically true. Trans women are not biological women. Biological women are biological women.
I don't think anybody really denies this. The like I said, The only people that really like have a problem with this and like really, really harp on it are TERFs. That's, the issue.
Where are you going with this? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yes. I should just, Neil deGrasse Tyson is just crushing it here.
By asking yourself, is it science or is it not science? It's people in society.
But this is a perfect example of an area where suddenly it doesn't matter to say things that are just true. Like, why is it bad or wrong to point out?
I have another way
to say what is true. Okay, so it's not bad to say things that are true. It's the motivation behind it. So like, if someone asked me, am I fat? If I'm a doctor, right, and I'm trying to assess your health, then I'm going to tell you that you're fat, if you are fat. I'm probably going to use nicer words, but that is something it's true, right? That's something that you're saying that is true. But if I just see somebody on the street and I have no relation to this person or whatever, and I tap them on the shoulder while I'm standing in line at fucking Starbucks or whatever, and just go, hey, I just want to let you know, you're fat. Like, there's a motivation there. That's the question. What is the motivation behind saying whatever it is that's true? You know what I mean?
To approach this, I care what is objectively true in the world as a scientist. But let me not say even as a scientist. I just simply care what is objectively true. And science happens to be a pretty potent path to invoke, to find out what is true. And so if people express themselves on a gender spectrum, and that is an actual thing in an actual society, if we have not fully explained that scientifically, that's an interesting frontier to study. If you want to say it's only sociological, then it's the purview of the social sciences. I don't care who studies it. It's an interesting fact about society.
Right? Oh, God, yes, Neil, yes, Queen, ugh.
That's worth learning about. To make it to fight someone and say, it's not biological, it's just your this. It's real and it's there.
Well,
boom.
Because it's real because it manifests.
But it is real because it manifests, but the question of how to classify manifestation is a scientific question, meaning that, for example,
Not necessarily, though. That's the thing, is that not necessarily. Not all classifications are scientific. Like race, for instance, which we'll get into later. But race is something that is socially defined. We group ethnicities together and we call those races, We don't, like if you go to Africa, we as Americans call them black, but it's extremely ethnically diverse, even though they are all black to us,
There was a woman over at Brown University. She came out with a study that suggested that there was a phenomenon called rapid onset.
Oh my fucking God, dude. Like, people bring out this bullshit over and over again.
That gender dysphoria, in which a member of a particular group would suffer from gender dysphoria, and this person's immediate peer group would suddenly have an onset of gender dysphoria. This paper was so controversial that Brown tried to pull it.
Because it was junk. Because it wasn't true. Like, they pulled all of the parents. They pulled the parents of transgender children, and sometimes not even transgender children. They would just ask the parents, and then they gathered these sources from biased places like transtrender.com or some shit like that, and they would pull people from those areas who were already biased against trans people, as it were, and then would ask them their perception. They didn't ask trans people their perception. They didn't ask a trans person, where did you get the idea that you were transgender? And then nobody was saying, well, I saw Amelia, formerly Bob, say that they were transgender and it looked really cool. And I was just like, well, I've got to do it too. And so this rapid onset gender dysphoria thing was pulled by Brown because it was junk, not because they were trying to censor anybody.
And then was forced to reassign it later. You see this sort of
treatment.
That's a different
question.
they were trying to, when he says reassign it later, they mean they pulled it and then made it more accurate before republishing it, where then they were going back and making it more reflective of how the study was actually conducted, where they said that they made it explicitly clear that they sought out biased sources for their data.
What you're asking,
that's what he's talking about when he says it was reissued.
Asking now is, are there some topics that...
Also, this is assuming that like being trans is bad and it's something to be avoided. That's another thing that I'll have to flesh that out. I'll have to think about that.
It should not be studied.
Because I don't think that it's like bad to be trans, right? So like even if you have a kid that's like going through a phase or something like that, and they just want to be different, and they have like Munchausen's by internet or some shit like that, I think that it's perfectly fine for someone who is cisgender to go on a gender journey and conclude that they're cis. Like, I think that's perfectly fine. I think that we should allow people the freedom to do that.
Studied scientifically.
Right.
And is there some taboo? And Sam Harris speaks a lot about this.
Yes.
And I think the concern is if you study some topic that's a hot button topic and you bring scientific methods and tools to it,
my God, I hate ads. I should get YouTube Premium, but I don't want to spend the money on the shit. You know what I mean? Anyway,
we don't trust. I'm interpreting here. I think we as a society don't trust that people in charge in a free country won't try to legislate something that will constrict people's freedoms in the face of that information. I think that's the fear.
Well, isn't that...
It's a fear.
I mean, and isn't that...
We don't trust our own ability to govern ourselves in the face of what could be some information relative to other kinds of information.
Isn't that a bit of a problem?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, it's not. It means it's not a free society. It's not a society of free inquiry, which I think you need ultimately. But yeah.
My general take on all of this stuff, from climate...
So I think what he's saying is that not that we shouldn't study these things, but we need to safeguard their findings. Hello, Slaughtering. Hey, Astrobuff. Long time no see. So I think what he's saying is that we need a way to safeguard things that are found out in science from like political purposes, and like shield them from like narratives or something like that. Because like if it, for instance, like phrenology, right? The whole skull shapes thing was a thing that was studied, and then people tried to legislate that, which ended up pretty dangerously. So I think I understand Neil deGrasse Tyson's point here.
Climate change to gender dysphoria to all of these issues is bring out the science and then let's hash it out. I think that the problem I'm seeing on a lot of sides is...
What is your motivation?
Yes, see, as I was saying earlier, it depends on the motivation. That's the important part.
Why? Why does that matter?
It matters because if you have political power, you could end up creating legislation that subtracts freedoms from people who previously were enjoying the same freedoms as you. The history of that exercise
Then make a better argument.
Doesn't end well.
Well, but
to make a better argument? Okay, so the example that comes to mind would be would probably be like conversion therapy and the gays, right? The big question when I was a teenager was, are gay people born gay, or are they choosing to be gay? I'm actually not into Neil that much, but I like his position now. Yeah, I don't really follow Neil very much. I know that he's part of, the intellectual dark web, I think, and whatever, and those people are cringe, but like Sam Harris is kind of a fucking idiot. No, he's a brilliant man, but like some of his claims are just so stupid, like claiming that he bridged the Izod gap and shit like that. But as I was saying, gay people, the question for the longest time was, whether or not they're born gay. And they had this whole thing where if it was contributed because, or if people were gay because it was an environmental factor or something like that, or if it was just sociological in general and there was no biological reality to it, and there was no gay gene, I think that was thrown around a lot, then conversion therapy was supposed to work or something like that, or that it would legitimize discrimination against gay people because it was just like a choice that they were making, and we had to combat that for the longest time, and it turned out, I'm pretty sure that they found no evidence that like they were just making the choice. I'm pretty sure that these people are born that way. I'm not entirely sure how that turned out, to be honest, but the question was irrelevant.
History of which exercise? Bring out all the science and let's hash it out.
I'm saying if you bring out all the science and the politicians hash it out, the history of that exercise is a recipe for disaster if it involves discoveries that put people's freedom as defined in our Constitution at risk.
Yes. For me, it's not a choice. I tried. Yeah. I tried the other way, and it didn't work out for me either.
But now you're...
I tried to like women, but it was hard. Yeah, I understand. I had a boyfriend in high school, but when it came down to doing the hibbity-dibbity, I couldn't do it. It was like, ugh. I just couldn't do wieners. I just couldn't. So it has to be something that is inside that's not a choice.
You're arguing for limitations on areas of particular study.
No, I'm arguing on we need a way to shield, we need a way to protect people's freedoms in the face of whatever gets discovered scientifically.
So
I'll give it.
I agree. I think that's what the Constitution is for.
Of course.
He doesn't agree, though. He's just saying that because it would be bad optics for him to say otherwise. But he doesn't agree. Because if he did agree, this conversation wouldn't be happening. It would have stopped at Neil deGrasse Tyson saying people have the freedom to do whatever the fuck they want with their gender or their sexuality or anything like that. We should have no say in it, and there should be no legislation restricting these freedoms. And the conversation would have ended right there. Ben is a little weasel man. Yeah.
Our rights from...
But we're always fighting people who want rights are always fighting others who are saying they don't get the rights from the Constitution. This is a daily challenge on the progressive left.
I love how Neil deGrasse Tyson is ignoring the elephant in the room. Like, I feel like he's saying that there are people who don't have rights afforded to them by the Constitution, you know what I'm talking about? Like, so, and I like that because I know that Ben Shapiro would, and I think he knows too, that Ben Shapiro would go the fuck off on that point. Would be like, tell me what letter of the law that tells that black people can't blah, 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 or whatever the fuck.
A daily challenge, right? Here's an example. I forgot how I ended up getting this phone call. It was some magazine that serves the gay community. And I remember why, because they wanted my opinion on, they wanted my opinion about whether being gay was biological or mental.
Right, there's that
boom, bam.
A new study that came out, this vast
or
study.
Psychological.
Right,
okay?
Right.
I'm actually Ben Shapiro. Well, wow, the Ben Shapiro in my chat room. Hey, man, gotta say, I don't really appreciate your work. I'm gonna put that out there. Let me just be real.
And I said, I don't care which it is.
Ben has such a big platform that it's scary. Like, people out there really think people are oh my God, I can't read today. Like, are there people that really think this tyrant? Yes. Here's the problem, is that the Daily Wire is the most popular conservative platform by a wide margin. Like, huge. It's enormous. That it beats out most other news organizations combined, like CNN, MSNBC, like all the left-leaning ones, by a wide margin, like several times. It's crazy.
Find out what it is. Fine. But the answer to that question should have no consequence on legislations or laws.
Yes.
Because, for example, suppose it said it's purely biological, okay? Then you say, oh, that explains it. Suppose it says it's purely psychological. What are you going to do now? You say, well, now you're going to go to the reorientation camps or whatever those are called, where they realign you because they say it's psychological rather than biological. All of a sudden, people start behaving in ways in society that want to constrict the freedom of expression of who and what people are. And
yes. Gee, yes. Like, oh my God, yes.
that is a danger. So maybe...
Did you see how Neil did that? Giving me yes, Queen vibes? Yes. I love it.
there needs to be a line in the sand. Let science do what it does, but politicians keep us free.
Yes.
Yet there's so many politicians that are doing the opposite of that.
So why aren't you a libertarian? I mean,
that scares me.
I'm a libertarian. Come over here. Just
He's not. He's not, though.
Okay.
the line is right here.
I'm a
Just join me over here.
He's not a libertarian because he wants to legislate morality. So he's not, as much as he wants to say, it's kind of like back during when Dave Rubin was a big thing. There was a whole deal with the classical liberal, which classical liberal meant conservative. Like we all knew that. And so he when he says libertarian, he definitely means, it doesn't mean libertarian for sure. Daily Wire is just alt-light. It's a major grift. They prey on goobers who are too naive to look up the facts. Yes, there's a lot of misinformation that comes out of the Daily Wire for sure. Oh yeah, definitely authoritarian, 100%. Easy. That's like the easiest call of our lives. But yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson on transgenderism, and yeah, I think Neil deGrasse Tyson absolutely crushed this, and destroyed Ben Shapiro with facts and logic, and it was great. It was just wonderful. Alrighty, you know what? I want to do this one last. No, I don't. This isn't the one I want to do last. This is the one we will do next, though. Look at all those comments. Let's see. What are the comments? We've officially reached the point where even scientists are scared to acknowledge the blatant truths and navigate taboo topics. I can't believe it. He didn't say that. He said exactly the opposite. He said that he feels like we should investigate these things, but the outcomes of these investigations should not be affecting legislation. This is why these interviews are so great. A conversation like this is 1 million times better than Twitter spats. That's true. I need Ben to sit closer, maybe on his lap next time. The area around the bush has officially been beaten. No, they got right to the point. Steven Crowder is debatably worse. I am honestly scared when I see his numbers and the amount of lies his audience eats. True, but Steven Crowder does not have nearly the audience that Ben Shapiro does. Ben Shapiro has like an army of sycophants that just eat up every single word that he says because he has the veneer of like intelligentsia, because he speaks quickly and he looks at the camera with this Kubrick stare. And so, yeah. Why does Ben keep saying he's a libertarian? True! This based comment section, it looks like. That's wonderful. I need a booster seat for my any organized debate. Yeah. Okay. So Sports Illustrated puts transgender woman, biological man, on cover. Like, that's the thing, is that like no one sits around and says that this isn't true or whatever. It's just unnecessary.
Time when Sports Illustrated was supposed to be a sports magazine. Yeah, that was funny. Sports Illustrated. I was a long time subscriber to Sports Illustrated. I will acknowledge that as a religious person, I always took the option, you can do this, of calling up Sports Illustrated and not getting the swimsuit edition, which was
he's lying.
Basically,
he's lying right now.
Material for teenage boys. I would always.
Yeah, he was once a teenage boy, so he's lying. I don't look at conservative channels because they are lying to themselves. When I see the likes for Steven, I feel bad for America. True. I look into conservative channels because I like to see what they're thinking about. And it's because I want to stay on top of whatever narrative that they're pushing and see if I can come up with a counter narrative to it when it's appropriate. If they're saying something that's true, then I leave it alone. If they're saying something that's wrong, then we'll go over it. In this case, Ben Shapiro, anytime he ever talks about trans issues at all, he's always wrong. So no matter what, anytime Ben Shapiro opens his mouth about transgender people ever, he's always completely and totally wrong. So endless stream of content right there.
Always call up Sports Illustrated and say, add an issue to the end of my subscription and just don't send the swimsuit edition. But the swimsuit edition has been a long time thing for Sports Illustrated, and always basically it was hot models and body paint on the beach. That's always what it was. Well, now Sports Illustrated, because it has become another preserve of the woke, has decided that it is time to cram down on red-blooded American males a particular perception of female beauty, namely dudes. So there is a trans woman.
Wait, because I've seen part of this before. I want to keep that in our heads.
Beauty, namely dudes.
We want to keep
cram down on red-blooded American males a particular perception of female beauty, namely dudes.
A particular perception of female beauty, namely dudes. Okay, keep that in mind.
So there is a trans woman who has now been featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated. This is the trans woman whose name is Lena Bloom. Now, Lena Bloom has had surgeries and hormone treatment and looks physically like a woman.
I mean, arguably, I'll bet you even if she was naked as shit, she would be indistinguishable from a cis woman. Like, I could bet. So, stallionslaughter@gmail.com, Lena Bloom, if you'll just send me a couple of nudies, I will prove it to everybody.
Right, which, by the way, seems rather transphobic to me. Because if you truly, Sports Illustrated, wanted to make the case that trans women are women, then trans women shouldn't have to look like swimsuit models.
Hold on! I thought that she was a dude. That's the So he said, cram down the red-blooded American male, the look of a woman, namely dudes. But now he's complaining that she looks like a woman.
In fact, trans women, I mean, this seems fatphobic to me. Trans women should actually look like Laurel Hubbard. Why isn't Laurel Hubbard on the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition?
Because Sports Illustrated goes for a specific type of woman, right? Sports Illustrated always has. They're always looking for, big fucking fabric stretching hoinky doinkies, little bitty waists, and giant badonkadonks. Like that's what they go for all the time. They're going for a specific genre of woman, and Lena Bloom looks like all the rest of the women that are featured on Sports Illustrated. So what is he fucking saying right now?
The New Zealand weightlifter who's now going to be weightlifting in the Olympics and has more to do with sports than Lena Bloom. I mean, why is it that only a trans woman who looks like a stereotypical swimsuit model in a low-cut bikini?
Because Sports Illustrated wants stereotypical bikini models on their covers, so it'll sell more copies. Duh.
Is now considered a fitting figure for...
I just love the way he keeps looking in that picture. His palms begin to perspirate, his eyes dilating, his hands shaking. He feels palpitations in his chest. He is definitely turned the fuck on right now.
Fitting figure for the cover of Sports Illustrated. Seems very, very fatphobic, very transphobic, frankly, because
it's just funny to see him try to what is this, like fake woke or whatever? No, it's there's a word for it. It'll come to me.
It seems to suggest that the only trans women who ought to be treated as women are trans women who conform to all stereotypes regarding women.
All women on Sports Illustrated, and this is like a common complaint from like feminists and stuff like that, is that women who appear in magazines aren't like real women in that they don't look like a typical woman. Like, these women are surgically enhanced, and they have Photoshop and all that shit. I'm surprised he isn't asexual. No, I don't think that he would admit that, even if he was. Let's see here. Ben, why are you on the cover of Gremlin Weekly? I mean, it's kind of fricked of them to want a little gremlin man on the cover of Gremlin Weekly, right? He's so stupid. It's crazy.
I mean, Lena Bloom, my understanding is, has had all of the surgeries to fake female body parts. But as we know, that is to suggest that is a requirement of trans women to be treated as women is violative of their norms.
True.
It is violative.
I know that he's being sarcastic, but that's true.
Of decency. So,
but Sports Illustrated doesn't have to feature, like, you know, if I was a woman, they wouldn't have to feature me on the cover, because they're just looking for women that look like Lena Bloom.
Truly, Sports Illustrated has not
This is that Harvard education for sure.
not gone far enough until Sports Illustrated suggests that red-blooded American males get used to the idea of a trans woman who looks exactly like a man.
What? But no, okay.
Because as we know, sex is really all in your head.
No.
Gender is really all in your head.
True. Gender is your internal understanding of sex. Yes.
And the person on the cover of Sports Illustrated shouldn't have to be a swimsuit model looking male masquerading as female.
But if the person is indistinguishable from women, then what really is the difference? You know, like, whenever you encounter somebody on the street, you're not interacting with their chromosomes. You're not interacting with their hormone receptors or their neural pathways. You are interacting with the whole person and their outward expression of these things. So I don't understand why this is such a big deal.
It should be a dude with twig and berries and chest hair and no fake breasts being treated essentially the same as a woman. That's when we know we've reached parity, I think. I think that's the really important thing. Now, look, the reason that Sports Illustrated is doing this is for the bleeps and giggles, right? They are doing it to push forward the quote-unquote social justice agenda.
Or because Lena Bloom is hot and they want to sell copies of their magazine. So they selected Lena Bloom, who is, like, unrealistically fucking hot, who's had probably many surgeries. There's probably a lot of Photoshop on that image. And this is true of cis women as well on the cover of Sports Illustrated. They treat all of these photos. And so, like, Lena Bloom is not getting any treatment that would be, you know, is any different than any other woman. But Ben Shapiro has a problem with this because Lena Bloom was born, you know, AMAB.
The idea being that if they push forward a biological man on the cover of Sports Illustrated as a woman, and if you say no, even if that biological man has...
But why? Why, though? That's the confusing part, is like, what really, if you can't tell the difference, even if someone is naked, like, I really don't understand. So now, this is my problem with this, is that they say that these people would be, oh no, it would be totally different if they got all the surgeries and everything like that. But it obviously doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't actually matter. These people are just against the idea of transitioning at all. And that's really sad.
Any surgeries and hormone treatments to look like a woman that is still a biological man. That if you say that, then this means that you are somehow transphobic.
Yes. Because there is no difference. Like, if you literally can't tell the difference just by looking at a person, or, you know, even getting up in them guts, like, if they are indistinguishable, then the only reason why to draw a line between these two things is because you're on an ideological bent, because you are discriminating against them for basically no reason, which would be transphobia.
Or if you, even though that is the biological truth, or that you're mean and vicious.
True.
Look, Sports Illustrated's a free company, can do what it
yes
wants. Right? It's a private company. But there is obviously a social attempt to normalize the idea that biological men who look like women are in fact women, which of
yeah.
course is a wild degradation of what it actually means to be a woman.
Well, what does it mean to be a woman? That's a good question, isn't it, Ben? Like, could you answer that question?
A word with an actual definition. So it's pretty obvious what sport.
Okay, well, but what's the actual definition? They'll say adult human female. But like, what, I mean, socially, whenever we're talking socially, what is the difference? Because if you saw Lena Bloom, you would not be able to distinguish her from other women unless you had like read her Wikipedia page or some shit like that. That's the only way you could know. And if that's the only way you could know, then like it would you would just treat her the same as anyone else.
Sports Illustrated is doing here. But Sports Illustrated didn't stop there. So one of the other models on the cover of SI Swimsuit Edition is, of course, the tremendous Megan Thee Stallion, because of her tremendous history with sports. According to Sports Illustrated
I don't know who this person is. What did he say?
According to Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition,
Nope.
because of her is, of course, the tremendous Megan Thee Stallion.
Megan Thee Stallion? Okay. She's an American songwriter. Okay. She's a rapper on... Oh, WAP. WAP. I gotcha. Yes. And we know all about Ben's relationship to the song WAP. No, I don't know Megan Thee Stallion, no.
Because of her tremendous history with sports.
WAP is the only song I've ever heard from her, and actually I've never actually listened to that song before. I've heard the memes, but I've never actually sat down and listened to that song, not one time.
According to Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition, Megan Thee Stallion is no stranger to magazine covers, but the rapper and songwriter always dreamed of being on the cover of SI Swimsuit, which is a weird dream.
Why?
She remembers as a young girl looking at the magazine and
F in the chat, boys. I didn't know Megan Thee Stallion. It's true.
saying, one day, this is going to be me. A couple of decades later, the
Why is it a weird dream, though, to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated? I don't understand the problem with this.
Houston native would have several Grammys under her belt and make history as the first rapper on the SI Swimsuit cover. And she is the perfect fit. Amazing. Amazing.
What's the problem with this? He's not saying anything. He's just said that she did the thing.
And then, finally, they have an athlete on the
I mean, good for her, right?
cover. So who is the athlete who's on the cover of Sports Illustrated? The athlete on the cover
It's been, what do you expect? I know. I know.
of Sports Illustrated is Naomi Osaka. Now,
That's a tennis player. I know that person.
you will recall that Naomi Osaka
I don't know Megan Thee Stallion, but I know who Naomi Osaka is.
withdrew from one of the tennis majors after a blow-up with the media in which she just wouldn't do her media hits. And the ATP, the Tennis Professional Association, they said, you need to do that, right? It is your job. Part of your job as a tennis player is to deal with the media, because this is true in all sports. You're supposed to do the press conferences. And Naomi Osaka then went out and she claimed that she suffered from deep anxiety. Not diagnosed anxiety, just deep anxiety of dealing with the media.
Okay, so if you're confronted with a situation and you're like, okay, this makes me like squicky, like I really don't handle these situations very well. I am a tennis player. I'm not a publicist, okay? I don't deal with like public relations. I just want to play some tennis. Like, I don't see the problem with this. I don't understand why he's got such a fucking issue with that.
Okay, fair enough. If you suffer from, like, I know people, I'm very close to people who have anxiety disorders that ought to be treated with kid gloves. You have to make provision for that, obviously. Naomi Osaka sort of suggested that that's what was going on. You know what people with anxiety disorders typically don't do? People who are shirking media attention, people who just want to stay away from the media and don't want to be involved with me. You know what they typically don't do? Pose for the cover of, I believe, Time Magazine has now done a cover on Naomi Osaka.
Okay, wait, hold. Oh my God, he's so stupid. Like, there's a difference between somebody who's just like, she's not like an Instagram model. She's not posting selfies all the time and trying to rack up as much attention as possible, and is not trying to wrap herself in as much communication with the public as possible. As far as I understand, she's a fucking tennis player, and she's like, I just want to play tennis. And so if she's on the cover of Time magazine, that's a huge honor, right? Sometimes. So that's a huge honor. She wants to be to have that honor bestowed upon her, so she can be on Time magazine, so she can promote her brand, so that more people will know who she is, so more people will buy her merch, so she can make more fucking money, so she can continue to play tennis. This has nothing to do with contacting other people or being around the press or asking any questions or anything, or answering any questions or anything like that. So like, oh God, I assume is thinking that like a tennis player has to do what he does, where he has to like, be in conflict with people or some shit. I have a legitimate anxiety disorder, and I'd bear it for Sports Illustrated. Yes, for sure. To be on the cover of Sports Illustrated, especially if you've got a brand that you're trying to sell. Obviously, she meant the public, but Ben is trying to distort her validity by grasping for straws. For sure. Yeah, he's just trying to grab onto anything that will work. Like, I don't even know why we're bringing these people up. Like, are we just talking about shit about people that are on magazine covers in general? Like, I don't even understand the relevance to this title of talking about Naomi Osaka.
And also Sports Illustrated. So strange that she doesn't want to take questions from, people who ask critical questions, but
Wait, she doesn't want to take questions. Cameras don't ask questions, okay? She's just... Oh my God.
If you are doing...
I'm sure she has a publicist that handles these things. And like there's been celebrities throughout all of time that have been like not very good with handling the public or public relations or journalists or paparazzi or anything like that. There's lots of people that are like that, but they have a job to do, and her job is playing tennis.
A Sports Illustrated cover or a Time magazine cover, then all of a sudden all the hesitancy goes away. And by the way, it's not as though Naomi Osaka was being asked like vicious, brutal questions. She was being asked questions about like her performance as a tennis player.
All those critical tennis questions to be asked, yeah.
Says Sports Illustrated. Naomi Osaka.
Well, that's the thing, is that I can understand. Like, say, if I were to be interviewed for TV, if they were to ask me about My Little Pony, right? Like, I would love it. I would get on there and fucking gush. So let's pretend that I had anxiety, right? Or like that I was an anxious person. If I could sit around and make YouTube videos about My Little Pony all fucking day long. And then if a magazine approached me and said, I want you to pose on this cover because we're going to talk about My Little Pony and we want you to be the face of it, I'd be like, cool. But this is different than like answering questions, because like people with anxiety, especially an anxiety disorder, this is usually, you don't have a disorder because you are, you don't have a disorder because you have a rational fear of things. An anxiety disorder is like having an irrational anxiety over certain things is kind of like the whole meaning of an anxiety disorder. So I don't understand what he's fucking saying, because like she might be up there like worried that she's gonna say the wrong thing or whatever, or look like an idiot, like trip over her words. Maybe she's not the best public speaker, all that kind of shit.
Osaka is no doubt an athletic powerhouse at 23 shields, 4 Grand Slam titles, and is headed to Tokyo to compete in the Olympics. This comes after defeating former U.S. Open champion Samantha Stosur in her WTA Tour debut at just 16. It's her strength and power off the court that makes Naomi a true legend. She's raised awareness about racial injustice, human rights, and mental health, cementing her as one of the most outspoken professional tennis players. Outspoken except when she won't talk to anybody who, has a question.
It's okay, but that's different. It's different than if someone, okay, this is like the difference between a debate bro and like a video essayist. You see this all the time on left Twitter, where you'll have video essayists talking shit about the debate bros, and then the debate bros talking shit about the video essayists. The video essayists are all about getting together they'll have like a React Andy type of situation, but what they want it to be very, very sourced. These people don't want to say anything wrong. They want to make sure they're saying exactly what they want to say, and they're very deliberate in all of their words. And a lot of people like me just like to sit here and bullshit and just kind of talk at the video like off the cuff. And a lot of people can't do that. There's lots of people that are unable to do that either way. Like I tried to do video essays and whatever, but I just don't have the attention span to sit down and like write out a script and like do all of that H-bomber guy shit. I just can't do it. And so it's all about diversity of tactics. And if she wants to use her platform to promote ideas that she thinks are good, even if she is unable to like be confronted with these types of things, I think that's perfectly fine. If all your advocacy is retweets or likes or clever sayings on Twitter and whatever, then good, go for it. If you can't answer questions, then don't answer questions.
My favorite quote from her Time magazine cover piece is she suggested, "I just don't understand why anyone would disagree with me." Like she said she was surprised that anyone would disagree with her about her very left-wing view of race in the United States.
I wonder what that view was.
She was named one of 2020 Sports Illustrated Sportspersons of the Year for her activism, was on Time's annual list of the 100 most influential people in the world.
Wait, what was the take, though? Why would anyone, she said, I don't understand why anyone would disagree with me. What if her take was like, what was his video about again? For sure, like, what the fuck are we even talking about anymore? But he, like, I guess back on this point, he says this. Wait, hold on. I wonder what the take was. Oh man, I wish I could find out. Because like, if I said, for instance, I think that black people are perfectly fine. And I like black people just exactly the way they are. And I think that black people should be afforded all of the same rights as everyone else. And if anyone disagreed with me, then yeah, I would be like, I can't imagine why anyone would disagree with me. And I would not really honestly be willing to be challenged on that. Like I would not in good faith be able to like sit around and think, are black people worth less than white people? Like I would not be able to entertain that question in good faith. And so like, if that was the nature of her take, then I don't understand why that would be a bad thing for her to say that.
Finally, there is the Sports Illustrated take on Lena Bloom. Okay, so here is what the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition says. Quote, Lena Bloom began her rise. Remember, Lena Bloom is a biological man. Began her rise to fame in the ballroom dance community and has since broken numerous barriers in the modeling world. She was one of the few openly transgender models to walk the runway during New York Fashion Week in 2017 and was the first transgender woman of color to appear in Vogue India. And how about acting? Yes, she's tackling that too. Lena made her acting debut in the film Port Authority, marking the first film in Cannes Film Festival history.
No, that was not my Ben Shapiro impression.
History that featured a transgender woman of color in a leading role. Now, Lena makes history yet again as the first transgender cover model in Sports Illustrated swimsuit history and the first trans person of color to appear on our pages. More importantly, the 27-year-old uses this platform to speak about acceptance, love, and change. She's passionate about inspiring others to love themselves and be who they want to be, unless they're a dude who just wants a biological woman, in which case they're a vicious, brutal sexist.
What? What? I didn't understand any of that fucking sentence.
A woman, in which case they're a vicious, brutal sexist. That'd be terrible. Who they want to be, unless they're a dude who just wants a biological woman, in which case they're a vicious, brutal sexist.
Unless they are a dude who just wants a biological woman and the what? I don't think that, okay. I don't know, maybe he's hitting on the super straight thing. Honestly, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I understand that the super straight thing started as like a transphobic meme, but I mean, if we're being real about it, the concept of a cis man being like, I really want to only date cis women, and that's fine. I don't think anybody really cares. I don't think there's any trans woman out there that's like, nope, you have to date me. because I don't think that trans women really would want that. I don't think any trans woman on the planet would want to be subjected to a partner that's going to question the legitimacy of their existence. You know what I mean?
That'd be terrible. So say the editors, among the many things we've learned over the past 18 months is how much we value being part of a community, how much we miss that interaction when it's taken away. This issue represents the culmination of our powerful community coming together during these trying times to make history. This is what the editor says. So, wonderful stuff.
It sounds based as fuck. Like, cool.
I'm sure that all of the 17-year-old boys who are receiving the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition will be thrilled to see a man who believes he is a woman. And
oh my God, just turn the fucking page. There's more pages than the cover.
Has had surgeries to look like a woman on the cover of the magazine. Now, again, I don't care very much about the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition.
After ranting about magazine covers for 8 minutes, we get this line.
The magazine. Now, again, I don't care very much about these.
Ranting for 8 minutes and then concluding that with, I don't really care, is it's just so good.
Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. Just as a cultural marker, it seems significant, right? We're not going to play this gaslighting game where the left does something. They say it's highly significant. You point out that it is highly significant that we are treating a transgender woman
the same as a woman. Oh my God, the horror.
The same way we would treat an actual born woman swimsuit model on the cover.
He has yet to explain why this is a problem.
Of magazines. And then they say, why are you even noticing? Is it important to you? The Sports Illustrated cover isn't important.
Some of the boys wouldn't even know she was trans, and Ben lies to himself like he says he's a libertarian. For sure. Like, you cannot tell me. Like, nobody would look at this picture and be able to tell. If you had no idea who Lena Bloom was, you would not know. You would not know. There's no way to know. They could, like I said, they could have nude pictures in there and no one would know. But I'm absolutely certain that there are, there's an article. There's an article in there that talks about her being trans. I'm sure of it. They're not like passing her off as a cis woman or anything like that. But there's just no utility in being like, this is a biological man.
That'd be terrible.
Oop.
Interaction when it's taken away. This issue represents the culmination of all of the 17-year-old boys who are receiving an actual born. Point out that it is highly significant that we are treating a transgender woman the same way we would treat an actual born woman swimsuit model on the cover of magazines. And then they say, why are you even noticing? Is it important to you? The Sports Illustrated cover isn't important to me. What's important to me is the mandate that has come down from our cultural commissars that we act as though a male who has had hormone treatments and surgeries is the full equivalent to a woman in every way, including in terms of sexual attraction.
I don't think so. Are there people saying this though? Are isn't there people like, if she's that's the thing. Oh my God. Like, okay. I'm trying to work out an analogy here. Okay. So if you look at lines on a page and the lines on the page look like a woman, like a drawing. Yeah, what the fuck is he talking about? But if the lines on a page look like a woman, then and people are like sexually attracted to that woman, we know that it's not a woman because it's actually a piece of paper with lines on it. It's a drawing, you know? But lots of people consume drawn pornography all the time. Like, it's a whole thing. There's a whole industry of drawn pornography. That's not a quote unquote real woman, but it's okay, you know, in the sake of like a magazine cover, which is kind of like the basis of like lusting after a magazine cover. There is no difference between a photograph and like a drawing, you know, like finding enjoyment of that. are the Coke lines, because we're gonna need that after this. Yeah.
That is a very interesting and I think rather unsupportable take in actual life, but it's something that the media wish to cram down.
I'm sexually attracted to Piccolo from DBZ. He's not a man, so what is Ben on about? Yeah. Exactly. Like, Lena Bloom is not a man, so yeah, I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about. If somebody found Lena Bloom attractive,
for sure.
For sure. He never really established why that would be a bad thing. We find things that are not women sexually attractive all the time because they represent women socially, like a drawing or something like that. It's the idea or whatever. It's a silly point. I don't understand really what the point he's trying to make. It's crazy. Whew. Okay. This last one, this is a doozy. This is one where that was a doozy. This one is hard to stomach. I'm not going to lie to you, but at the same time, we can get through it. I'm not attracted to Lena Bloom, and I'm gay, but she's a man. I'm so tired of it. Yeah. Right?
This is being championed. These are civil rights heroes. There's a man who's sticking his nipple in the mouth of a child, in the mouth of a small baby, in a bizarre attempt to nourish the baby with literally nothing, and you're a bigot if you disagree. You're the authoritarian for suggesting there is a problem here.
You're the authoritarian if you feel like you have the authority to put yourself between the decisions of mother and child. Yes.
There is apparently a series that is called 9 Months with Courtney Cox. It's a docu-series about various couples having children. And this went viral yesterday. It is a video
DWRL
from apparently season 3, episode 8 of 9 Months with Courtney Cox. And it features a transgender man, meaning a biological woman, is a biological woman.
This is really fucking important. You have to know this. You have to...
Who had a baby. There's not a man who had a baby because that's not possible. There's a biological woman who used her uterus to create a baby and then pushed the baby out through her vagina because she's a biological woman once more. And no amount of testosterone that produces facial hair or growing the hair out or mastectomies changes the fact that this is a biological woman, as evidenced by the fact that biological men cannot give birth.
God, he's just so dead with rasclat. Oh, Jamaican curse word. I got you. so like, I don't understand. I am absolutely 100% certain that people have told Ben Shapiro that we recognize that there is a difference between male and female, and there is no purpose to saying biological man and biological woman. Like these words have no use because we have man, or we have male and female, man and woman, and these words work just fine. Hello, Eighth Flame.
I promise you, babies can't fit through the urethra. I think a kidney stone is bad. Try fitting a watermelon through there. In any case.
Okay, his Kubrick stare with his deadpan delivery just comes off as weird. I'm not going to lie.
This particular episode of this bizarre show features a transgender...
Now, I'm harping on that a lot, but can we all be real for a second? Ben Shapiro is adorable, okay? If he didn't say the shit that he says, he would be cute. I'm not going to lie to you, okay? He's cute. All right? Let's just go mask off really quick. Ben Shapiro is a cute boy, okay?
Man, meaning a biological woman, who is married to a transgender woman, meaning a biological man. So this means a man who is married to a woman, but they believe they are members of the opposite gender.
Sounds awesome. I don't know what the problem is.
So in this particular scenario, the quote-unquote husband, the faux husband, meaning a biological woman, gave birth. And the faux woman, meaning a biological man...
I don't understand why he has to, like, draw this out so much.
...is the quote-unquote mother in this scenario. And this leads to the bizarre situation that apparently...
All the beautiful dummies out there. At least see thick. Ben Shapiro is a robotic. He isn't cute. He's all right. Maybe if he smiled more, he'd seem cuter. Yeah, I don't know. I like it. I like he's so serious. You know, being a biological woman. Yeah.
Apparently, the parents have now refused to accept ID for their newborn baby because that would require the birth mother, you know, like the actual woman, to identify as a mother and not the male. Hey, by the way, you're a bigot if you disagree.
Okay, I don't know about the bigot part, I guess. I would say that you're kind of an asshole, though. Like, I would be pissed the fuck off if somebody came in and said that I wasn't allowed to let my son curse. I don't give a shit if my kid curses. Like, he can cuss all he wants to. It doesn't hurt my feelings, right? And I've had people tell me and be like, you shouldn't do that. And I'm like, go fuck yourself, because he's my kid and I'll do what the fuck I want. I'll raise him exactly the way I want to, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And if they have a problem with that and they want to make a big deal about that, then they're an asshole, you know?
Not only are you a bigot, if you bring up your children to disagree, the left will sick the authoritarian regime on you. I mean, this is the way this is going to go over the next few years.
Well, imagine if I brought up your kids to disagree. Like, I'm pretty sure you would have a problem with that. Like, I don't think that people don't really take to that very well. Like, having other people step in and decide what's best for my kid. I mean, yeah, go fuck yourself. I would be pissed off for sure.
You watch. And here is the bizarre new world we have created for ourselves, the counter-reality new world we have created for ourselves.
Not only
For this one couple, by the way, like, he's acting like this is going to be a broader thing that, like, literally everyone's going to have to do. Like, the police are going to kick in your front door and be like, why is this baby not fucking suckling from your hairy nipples or some shit like that? Nobody's going to, like, it's, oh God, what a waste of time. It's just one couple doing a thing.
only are we not assigning a sex to the baby, DC is forcing me to label myself as the mother, and that's not the case. Paterna is the mother.
This whole birth certificate thing is really causing me a lot of hurt. Trans women can be mothers.
Oh, I put it on here.
Okay, this is pervert.
Wait, I just realized they censored. I wonder if this is because I remember seeing this on Twitter and this was not censored. This is something that Ben Shapiro's little Daily Wire crew added. I'm sure of it. Nope, those nipples are illegal.
Okay, this is pervert. Pause it for a second to understand what just happened. Okay, if you're not watching this, the video then cuts to the quote-unquote mother, a biological male, attempting to feed a human child with his chest. Now, this is not going to work because it turns out that biological males do not have milk ducts.
That's not true.
So it's going to be rather difficult for the baby to get any sort of nutrition from all of this, of course.
That's not true. He's actually wrong on that one.
But it doesn't matter so long as these people feel better about themselves. Sure, the baby's going to starve to death, but
like there's no other source of food for any baby ever.
at least the
It's weird. Like, we have to accept that, all right? It's strange. And so to see that it is shocking in that it's very, very strange. But he's also wrong that there are hormones that exist that will cause males to develop breasts. And I believe that's a side effect of some drugs. It's called gynecomastia. That's a thing that happened. So a baby will starve a baby will starve if they have two gay dads, for sure. God, he's so stupid. But men can, as a side effect of some drugs, can develop gynecomastia. It's when they develop breasts. And if they have gynecomastia, they can also lactate. That's another thing that happens. Hell, fucking newborn babies. Like 5% of newborn babies lactate, male or female. they will lactate. They call it witch's milk or some shit like that. And so, yeah, males under abnormal circumstances, like if they're on a lot of hormones, such as transitioning and all that, and they have breasts and all that shit, then it's totally possible for them to have a nipple which is indistinguishable from the nipple of a female, which can also lactate. That's also possible. Like, maybe, we don't know, like these people could have been, what is it called? There's a, hang on, lactation hormone, prolactin. Like they can take prolactin, and it will cause them to lactate, lactating but not pregnant. Like there's a whole thing where people can lactate without being pregnant or have anything to do with pregnancy, if they have prolactin. So it's totally possible that a biological man, as Ben Shapiro would put it, could lactate. It's true. Ben Shapiro's face is cute and bubbly and baby-like. He should use his face in speech for something more beneficial like comedy. Oh, wait. Yeah. He is a failed Hollywood writer. That is true.
Delusional parents feel better about themselves. And this is being championed. These are civil rights heroes. Civil rights heroes is a man who's sticking his nipple in the mouth of a child, in the mouth of a small baby, in a bizarre attempt to nourish the baby with literally nothing.
What is the difference, honestly, between a trans woman letting a baby suck on her nipple than like a baby sucking on your thumb, or like chewing your fingers, or doing that weird mouth thing on your arm, or whatever? Like, all this shit that babies do. Babies like put their mouths on fucking everything. So, I mean, it is weird, and it's a doozy, and it's difficult to watch just because it's so far outside the norm. But when you stop and think about it, is it really all that bad? Because I'm going to be honest with you. I don't remember a single second of sucking on my mom's titties. I don't remember that shit at all. Like, not even a little bit. So immoral. Yes.
And you're a bigot if you disagree, don't you see? Don't worry. Is it?
I believe in God, but I believe he has more pressing issues. Yeah. My bestest friend in the whole world is a fundy, he believes that the earth is less than 10,000 years old, and that the Noah's flood actually literally happened, and all that other shit. He doesn't give a fuck about any of this stuff. Like, he's just like, dude, I've read the Bible cover to cover several times. Hell, I've read the Bible cover to cover with him over the course of several months. And the main takeaway that we have both had from the Bible, even though I'm an atheist, has been, you're just supposed to love people. It's to be good, be kind to each other. And they use a hell of a lot of pages in order to say that. But that's the overarching theme of everything that Jesus said. If you start taking a bunch of shit that, like, Paul said, Paul had a bunch of problems, and he said a bunch of shit, but I don't know if there's really very many Paul followers. I'm pretty sure there's lots of Jesus followers. They follow the word of Jesus, but not Paul. So I don't know. That's weird to me, but that people run with the Bible the way that they do.
You're the authoritarian for suggesting there is a problem here, or that perhaps it is not in the best interest of a child to grow up under these circumstances.
Okay, but that is an authoritarian take. I believe in the flood. Isn't there like historical backings or things like that? And yes, Jesus is always my fave. Yeah, I don't think so. I'm not entirely sure if that is historically backed. When they say historically backed, like, it could have been explained, like, if there was like a local flood, then to Noah, it could seem like the entire world was flooded. But they had such a narrow slice of understanding of the entire world, and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not entirely sure if there was. I don't really know enough about that part to know if there was any like physical evidence of that. I know that there was people claiming that they found the ark or whatever, but that turned out not to be true. But anyway,
That's in fact, if you suggest that, maybe the CPS should come for your kids.
See, but that is an authoritarian take to say that this is not in the best interest of the child, so we need to take away your kid because you're doing something we disagree with, even though it's not hurting the child. If you involve the state, then yeah, that does lean on the more authoritarian side. I'm not saying that all forms of authoritarian are bad, right? So like it is kind of like an authoritarian take to say that we probably shouldn't defecate in the street. And if we would like a police officer to step in order to stop people from defecating openly in the street, then, sure. But then again, we have a reasonable expectation to go outside and not see people defecating in the street. But I don't think that there is really that there's the same thing that could be said about the way you raise your children, No, not within the time frame. At least there would be a lot less species. You guys are on the Noah's Ark thing. I'm gonna move on with the video.
If you suggest that sort of thing, and we can continue with this. I mean, does anyone give a damn about the kid? Apparently not.
No, I don't. It's not my kid, and they're not hurting it. They're not hurting the kid. Like, they're just doing the thing.
Kids are just a purse. They're just a tool for people to use for their own personal enjoyment, apparently.
They can raise them however they want. It's their kid, okay? Like,
the baby has been able to latch, but I've not been able to produce any milk.
'Cause you're a dude!
And dudes can lactate. That's what Ben Shapiro is wrong about here.
We're gonna supplement the feeding with formula so that my baby's still getting the nutrients that they need, but I'm still feeling hopeful.
You're not supplementing. That's not supplementing. Supplementing assumes that there is a baseline of nutrition that is being provided.
Okay, so now we're going to get into the semantics here of whether they're saying, like, when they say supplement, then we're going to get into, that it's basically
my wife nursed all of our
argument.
children, and then at a certain point, because she was working and she didn't have time to pump, we had to supplement with formula. Supplementation means not the whole thing.
Oh my God. Wow. They just got destroyed with facts and logic because they used a word that Ben Shapiro didn't like. As long as there's no abuse, adults have the right to raise the child how they want. Abso-fucking-lutely. If they're not doing anything that is proven to, like, hurt children, like, sometimes I wonder about corporal punishment. I don't know if we should make it illegal or whatever, but I'm pretty sure the data comes back conclusively that beating your kids doesn't help them, that it actually makes things worse. It makes things worse in the long term. That, like, in the short term it can correct certain behaviors, but in the long term it really fucks them up. So yeah, but at any rate, like, I still wouldn't step in. Like my best friend I was talking about, he whoops his kids. I disagree with that, but I'm not going to go over there and tell him, you are not allowed to whoop your kids. Here's all the data that I have found that says that whooping your kids is wrong or whatever. It's his kids, and his kids are fine. I go over there and they're perfectly respectful and whatever. And, we'll play Fortnite or some gay shit, whatever whatever they play. Imagine raising your child like an authoritarian and yourself being a libertarian. Libertarian should be in giant fucking quotes right here with when concerning Ben Shapiro.
What kind of perverse damage are you doing to a baby? You're having the baby latch to a male nipple, and then you're like, oh yeah, and I'm supplementing with formula.
The baby doesn't know the fucking difference. The baby doesn't know his ass from his elbow, okay? The baby is a barely functioning head attached to an 8-pound bag of shitting and pissing meat. Like, the baby is barely even a sentient or conscious being at this point. So no, I would reject this wholeheartedly, that there's any damage being done. Hang on 1 second. What's up, boy?
Remember that thing that you pour like sweet stuff in?
No.
Cup?
Oh, you're talking about the cup that changes colors?
No.
No. Okay, what's up?
That you hold by a handle and you turn like the squiggly pour in or the whole one. You know that?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Like a long time ago that Sasha had Kool-Aid in.
Oh yes, the pitcher.
Yeah. I put my soda, water.
You're making like a potion.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's actually complete and it tastes really good.
Okay.
I can get you a cup.
Oh no, thanks.
It's really good.
It's all right. I have my sodas. I appreciate it. He's really wonderful. I am not drinking whatever fucking concoction he has devised in the pitcher. Not a chance. But anyway,
Yeah, well, we've created a hell of a society for ourselves, haven't we? We're a society of science, by the way. We are a society that is dedicated, foursquare, to science. It's all we care about. In fact, we are so dedicated.
It's so funny that he says this so sarcastically while also not understanding that males can totally lactate, and it's absolutely possible if you take the right hormones and take all of the necessary precautions. It is possible for a male to develop breasts and then lactate.
Dedicated to science right now? Like so.
But I can't have children. Well, I mean, isn't there adoption? Like, adopting is pretty based and not cringe, if that's possible. I don't know if you live in a state where gay people can't adopt, which, if that's true, that would be really, really sad. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe adoption is expensive or something like that, or if there's like a huge giant. I don't know how that works. But yeah.
So unbelievably dedicated to science that apparently California has now declared that all children K through 12 next year will be mandated to wear masks in the classroom. That's how dedicated to science the left is. They are so dedicated to science, man. Really well done, everybody. And if you disagree, you should be shut down. If you disagree, then you should be banned from social media. If you disagree, the weapons of government should be used against you. If you disagree...
I'm not legal yet. I think I'll have to force myself to be straight. Ugh. Do you have to go through a legal process for like a surrogate or something like that? I wonder if that can work. Like if you could, go to like a sperm bank or something like that and have them do the thing. I wonder if that's possible. I have no idea.
And if you elect people who disagree, then the minority party should abscond and deny them a quorum. All of this in the name of democracy, don't you see? And you're the authoritarian for suggesting that objective
I want to adopt Ben so I can bless him with my immoral illusions.
things like science, biology, logic, that these sorts of things should apply. You are the brutal, vicious authoritarian. This country, I guess that we got so fat and happy that we no longer had to engage in the world of reality. And that is really the end of it. Because I'll tell you what, the folks who are protesting in Cuba right now, the people who are marching in Cuba at risk to their own lives, I highly doubt that these sorts of idiocies are the things that they worry about on a day-to-day level.
Probably not, like, in that situation, no. Like, if we were in a world war or something like that, like if it was World War II, I probably, honestly, wouldn't worry so much about trans rights, right? I would be more worried about Nazis. There's a hierarchy of needs, sure. I don't think anybody denies this, though. Excuse me. I don't think anybody sits around and thinks like, if we were hunting, gathering in the woods and there was no society and we lived in like, in the area of rocks and sticks and shit like that, that we would have to worry about these types of things. It's good to have the technological process in order to be able to afford people the rights and well-being and the ability to sit here and think about the things that we do, or like the broader meaning of life or whatever. Like, I don't see the problem with this.
At a certain point, a country gets so fat and so rich and so bored and so stupid because the country hasn't been challenged that we start to just imbibe from the well of idiocy.
Okay. So if we develop to a point where we don't have to literally hunt every single day, or we don't have to be in nomadic tribes that have to trudge 20 miles a day in order to have enough food to feed our families, then this is stupid, because then we might actually, sit around and think about and enjoy things that don't have to do with our own survival, I guess. So like all of these philosophers that sat around and thought about the meaning of life and came up with concepts like the prescriptive and descriptive separation or whatever the fuck. Like, you're smart for an atheist? Yeah, it's I've given up on my edgy atheist days. But yeah, I don't understand this concept of people saying that we don't need to think about things that don't have to do with our own survival. I don't know what that means, to be honest. What is an MBTI? I wonder is that like a personality test thing? I'm not entirely sure. Anyway.
And then we become more and more idiotic. And as we become more and more idiotic, we declare anybody who disagrees the real threat to the country.
Well, before, okay, so let's run this logic through, okay? So we're, at one time, this hunter-gatherer group where we're like a nomadic tribe of very tight-knit people. I tuned out Ben Shapiro like 30 minutes ago. So, we're a nomadic tribe of people that are just kind of like wandering this vast open land, right? And we have no society and all this other shit because we wake up and we have to chase our next meal. And if we don't, we die. And so we don't have time to sit around and think about things. But now that we have, once technology progresses, once we are able to have food stores and things like that, we don't have to hunt every single day. So we can sit around and think about wouldn't it be interesting if we concocted a box that had like microchips in it? And now we have the iPhone with the cavemen. Like all the cavemen have iPhones, and they're posting to Twitter in the Mesozoic era and shit like that, whatever Mesozoic era Twitter would look like and all that other shit, and they have time to sit there and actually like talk about things or whatever. But you get the idea what I'm talking about, is that like as we are able to provide better for society, we can sit around and think about things, and then we progress as time goes on. So if we got to a point where women were able to if we sat around and thought, maybe now that we don't have to literally rely on our physical prowess in order to provide for our families, maybe women should be allowed to provide for their families on their own. Maybe they belong in the workplace right alongside men, maybe. And if you disagreed with that, especially with how society has progressed, yeah, I would say that you're a fucking asshole. Weird how the HDI rises and the quality of life directly affects society. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's wild, isn't it?
Yes, America. The American flag remains a beacon of liberty so long as the truly authoritarian left loses. If the authoritarian left wins, then we have a bigger problem, and so do people all over the world.
It's funny, whenever he says authoritarian left, like in the real world, whenever we talk about the authoritarian left and not in whatever fucking weird mind game that Ben Shapiro has put himself into, when he says authoritarian left, he's talking about like Joe Biden. When I think authoritarian left, I'm thinking Stalin. I'm thinking like Mao and like Mussolini and like, the communists that were, gassing the gays and shit like that. That's what I think of when I think authoritarian left, not fucking Joe Biden.
Wow. Things are going great, guys. Things are just going spectacularly well.
And it's really funny that he keeps impugning them as being the authoritarian left for saying that, yes, I think people should do whatever the fuck they want to do. Like that is a fundamentally libertarian position. And the fact that this libertarian doesn't see that is incredibly ironic. Just absolutely hysterical to say that. I think that libertarianism can go too far, just like authoritarianism is very likely to go too far. There's a middle ground there, but to say that that people shouldn't raise their kids the way they want to is inherently an authoritarian position. I mean, let's be real. Okay, so we are out of Ben Shapiro videos. That was all the Ben Shapiro we were going to cover. I think there was possibly one more. This one's 10 minutes long, and it's really, really easy. It's basically he's saying a bunch of bullshit about how the Facebook is trying to take their show off the air because they're too popular or some shit like that, and it's just not true. I looked into that a little bit. I actually made a tweet about it, and I tried to make it as distinctly as possible. I've got a lot of notifications. Holy shit! But that's his thing. I guess you could follow me on Twitter for this type of shit. But like, nowhere did anyone suggest that the Daily Wire should be shut down for any reason. This is being extrapolated from Facebook struggling with what to do about the Daily Wire using multiple pages to promote their content, which is in violation of TOS. And that is the only thing that they've ever said, was that they're not supposed to misrepresent the owner of a page in order to promote another page, which is what the Daily Wire does. They have lots and lots of pages that are things like don't mess with America, and all it does is promote the Daily Wire. And then it'll be like America first, and all it does is promote Daily Wire content. And so Facebook is actually allowing the Daily Wire to violate TOS because they're seeing such massive success. There is no indication that they want to, big tech to shut down Ben Shapiro. There is no indication whatsoever of that. In fact, the exact opposite is happening. Quote unquote, big tech is making a lot of money off of the engagement that Ben Shapiro gives them. So they're actually allowing them to violate TOS in order to allow that to continue to happen. This is just more conservative, victim mentality, where they're just sitting around and they just want to be a persecuted minority or some shit like that, where they want to sit around and pretend they're being silenced while they're sitting in front of 20 microphones and want to pretend that they're being silenced. It's crazy. Okay. So last up on the little agenda here, I sent a DM to Know Nothing TV, running through an argument. Typical conservative NPC be like, the left always wants to cancel me. Yeah. And that shit gets annoying too, because like Ben Shapiro has 10 times the number of engagements over every other news source ever. And then is like, I have been canceled. It's like, all right, dog, whatever the fuck. Okay. So, first, seriously, in case you're not aware, let me go back to Twitter really quick. In case you are not aware, Oli London is a fucking moron. I spelled London wrong. Oli London is a really huge, giant dumbass. And recently had his face surgically altered so he could be Korean. Now, we talked about this briefly whenever we did the Jody's Corner React video, when they talked about transracial. I didn't have a concise answer to this problem whenever they were talking about how if a white person, for instance, identified as black, why would that be invalid? And I understand that people like Oli London are not doing this in good faith. Now, the problem with Oli London is that for the longest time, yes, I had the same reaction, Dick. Absolutely. It was like, what the fuck? So his transition story, I'm sorry. non-binary. Their transition story is that they're becoming Korean or whatever. And so I didn't really have a concise answer to this whenever it was brought up on Jody's Corner, but I believe I do now. So, Oli London
identifies Korean. That's just my culture. That's my home country. That's exactly how I look now.
Oli London, I believe, is genuine. And I don't think that their identity is valid. I don't think that they are genuine in that sense. I don't think that we should recognize this person as being a valid, like, Korean identity. And I'll get into why in a minute. But one of the arguments that we used to give against transphobes was they would say that it's not real, that they just want smoke or whatever. And we would say, you really think that they're going through all of the bullshit? They're going through the transition. They're taking the hormones. They're getting their bottom surgery. They're getting their boobs cut off. All this other shit. They're doing all of that for attention, you think? Yes, they are, and I don't think it's valid as well. Yes. And the reason why is because... I'll get into that. But I think that they're genuine because they went through this length. And Oli London is a K-pop stan. We can get... I'm sure there's some posts in here. Come on. But they are so fucking into K-pop. I'm pretty sure that they said it in the video that we were just looking at.
Because I actually... That's exactly how I look now. And I also identify as Jimin. That's my Korean name. But not only that, I know it's a little bit confusing for some people. Nobody's ever come out as Jimin or Korean, but this is something that you guys know if you've followed my journey for the last 8 years. I've really struggled with identity issues.
Oh my God. So anyway, it's just so bad. But they are genuine. I think that they genuinely believe that they are Korean, and it's because they were swept up into this K-pop nonsense where these K-pop people are rabid stans, right? Like they're just, ugh. And so they're so into the K-pop thing that they would go to this length to be Korean because they like K-pop that much. So I believe that they are. It all sounds like a joke, which just sets us back. True. But the problem, like, I think that I understand how to combat this. You have to identify, you have to define a valid trans identity in a way that excludes this bullshit. And the way to do that is to understand exactly how trans identities work. So we'll go through this really quick. I sent this to Know Nothing TV, and he's going to get back to me. It would be based as fuck if Know Nothing would allow me to just come on there. Maybe I can answer some questions. But here is the basic argument. I'll just read it super fast. This is opening because I sent this to Destiny. The guy on the screen should be charged with swollen goods. He will beat it because he will swallow the evidence. Anyway, so race/species is not a social expression. The reason why I included species is because of the otherkin thing. Because the reason why is because if I include or if I try to define valid identities in a way that excludes race, then I necessarily have to exclude trans species as well. And I know that there are people that identify as trans species. These people are so fucking annoying. Got in a huge fight with them and over Twitter. But anyway, we must define valid identities based on their relationship to reality. Gender identities are based on the underlying fact of the matter. Therefore, man, woman, and various non-binary identities are valid. Since there are characteristics of sex, which is the factual basis, is filtered through gender, which is the internal understanding of sex, then this is communicated to others in gender expression. The characteristics of sex are influenced by chromosomes and hormones and neural pathways, etc., etc., etc. None of which are necessary to evaluate by a medical professional when diagnosing dysphoria, if such a diagnosis is necessary. Since it is expensive, invasive, and unnecessary to find the exact observable reason someone feels trans, we simply accept that there is likely something going on and recognize that it's probably best practice to simply take their word for it when they claim to be trans. This is true of dysphoric, non-dysphoric, and non-binary identities. YouTube, the hidden gospel of the Word of Oz decoded. Every scene has hidden biblical meanings. YouTube, that exactly. I don't know what you're on now. But anyway, the problem with identities such as otherkin and trans race is that there is no internal understanding of race or species to communicate. It is simply what it is. And what I mean by that is that there is... Well, I guess we'll just finish it up here real quick. Race is a social construct in which we group identity or ethnicities together, but these ethnicities are not expressed socially. As I was saying earlier, you can go to Africa and you'll see lots and lots of black people, but those black people are extremely ethnically diverse. There's lots and lots of ethnicities going on, but we as Americans just see black people because race is a social construct in that way. There is an underlying fact of the matter, which is the ethnic makeup of a person, but this ethnic makeup is not expressed. People can have a perception of a race and they can interact with that perception, but the individual being perceived does not express race, especially in the way people express gender. You are born black, but you do not communicate that you are black. You are just simply black. It is what it is. And so one thing that I think is really funny is that people will claim, this is not really included in here, I think, is that people will claim that Oli London is doing a cultural appropriation, which is really, really weird and kind of racist. And the reason why I say that is because his face is not like a cultural thing, you know, like his face is not like a cultural construct. It is representing the ethnic background of a person. But I reject the idea that there are behaviors and interests and cultures endemic to races. I reject this outright. Black people can act however the fuck they want, and there is no black behaviors. And that black people are free to do whatever the fuck they want to do. White people are also similarly, but white is different because white people don't really have a culture, since it's so what's the word I'm looking for? It seems to encapsulate a lot of different things. Like there are Hispanic people that are white, Italians are white, French are white, the British are sometimes white, and so on. White people don't have any like ethnic underpinning, you know, the way that black people do in America. Same goes with species. You are born human and you do not communicate that you are human. You simply are human. We're whiter. Are we whiter though? Are we though? Really? I'm just saying. Because if you go to Spain, those people sound like they should be brown, but they're white. I'm just saying, like they are European. They look just like everybody, all the rest of the Europeans. Anyway, race is not a hormonal genotypical expression. Therefore, it does not affect psychology in the psychonormative people. Race dysphoria sounds more like envy of races that are treated better. I don't think treated better, just treated differently. Like maybe they just, because I would understand that it's boring, okay? It's boring to be white, okay? Like when people wake up and they don't have something that they could, you know, they're not wearing a piece of like their personality on their skin or something like that. Because a lot of people, when white people see black people, they think like a pervasive idea is that like you see a black person and you're like, you know, You feel like you know something about that person. You have to break that understanding. That's part of the social construct that we should be dismantling as much as possible. That when you see a black person, you don't know anything about them just because they're black. That's kind of the point that I'm getting at. And so all the people who are crying about cultural appropriation when people claim to be another race, that's why I say it's racist, is because then you're saying that there are cultures endemic to races, and I reject that entirely. You know what's funny? Jamaicans who aren't used to white people kind of literally see them as sort of divine. I understand that there's that there are some weird attitudes when it comes to race, but then like if you go to China and Japan have an ethnic conflict that is completely separate from like white and black in the United States. When we see Japanese or Chinese people, they look the same to us. We don't recognize really the difference there. But in Japan and China, they know the difference. So this is one of my problems that I have with like white nationalists, is this like, okay, at what point do you stop like segregating people? Because if you say, let's kick out all the black people and we just have white people, well, then eventually you're going to have to, somebody's going to raise the question, well, statistically speaking, people with brown eyes, you know, eat too much or some shit like that. We need to kick out all the people with brown eyes. And people with blonde hair are stupid, so we should kick out all the people who have blonde hair. And so on and so forth. At what point do we stop dividing each other into different categories? Glinda, the good with. The name Glinda means good and holy. She represents the Holy Ghost, always mysteriously helping. Okay, I don't know what you're on about. You are a very confusing person, okay? I'll probably read like one more of your comments, but I'm like this close to just ignoring everything you say because I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, I think the real question is kind of like Neil brought up earlier, how many real cases are there of transracial in society? Is it a societal fact? Because I feel like it's not. No, it is not. The problem that I'm having is that I know that it's a meme question, and I know that it's exceptionally rare, and that nobody really does this in good faith. I think Oli London is the first one that I can make the case where I'm like, this dude is, this baby is genuine. Like, I believe they actually believe that they are Korean, because there's no possible way that they would go through all of this effort, all of this stigma, if they weren't genuine. We used to say this about transgender people all the time, that they wouldn't go through all of the surgeries and hormones and stigma and all that just because they're faking it. Like I just don't believe that. Yellow Brick. Oh God. Okay. Never mind. James McIntosh. I am officially ignoring everything you say. Anyway, it might be argued. This is continuing. So there is not an expression of race or species. It is not possible to change a race or species expression. Therefore, transracial and otherkin are not valid identities. It might be argued that black people express their race through black culture, but black culture certainly isn't the result of biological processes occurring within the black person. This shit right here, saying that I identify as black, being cultural appropriation, gets dangerously close to like phrenology type shit, where we are measuring skull shapes in order to determine people's behavior. That's why it's dangerous to be like, it's cultural appropriation to claim you're another race. So black culture results, in America black culture results from responding to the unique environment which is, statistically speaking, forced upon them. But anyone else raised in a similar environment will be endowed with the same culture through similar experience. And we can see this, in white people who are raised around black people. If a white person grows up in a similar environment, then the white person will grow up with a similar culture. And so I don't believe that black people are uniquely is there a mute button around here for that dude? I think so. No, I'll have to ban him. And I don't want to ban him. He's not saying anything bad or whatever. He's just fucking confusing. So I don't want to like ban him. Anyway, as I was saying, yeah. So I reject the idea that there are cultures to races of people for any other reason. Therefore, I also reject the argument that otherkin is more valid than transrace because of cultural appropriation being harmful, as there are no cultures inherently endemic to any race. And to assert otherwise is literally the definition of racism. Further, I reject the idea that otherkin is harmless, as it legitimizes the impression that trans people exist purely as a means for crying for attention. Let's see here. True, I respect that you are a gracious stallion. I try. So this is my syllogism. If anybody needed a summary, valid identities are based on an expression of the underlying fact of the matter. Race is not an expression by the individual. Trans race is not a valid identity. I don't think that this is a controversial take. It's extremely, apparently, it's not far enough for the LGBTQs on Twitter, because I was called a TERF and a true scum and a queerphobe for this take. So, you know, this is not a popular position, which is crazy to me that we have gotten to the point where, how can I access that? If you want to access this, like if you want to attack this position, and like help me steelman this argument, I can put it in a Google Doc, and then tweet it, and then you can have access to it, and you can think about it all you want. Why is it red? Why? Okay. Because I would like to steelman this argument as much as possible. Because if it gets to the point, like if somebody goes through this argument and finds a fault in it and it's just garbage, then I would like to know so that I wouldn't be stuck in a position to whatever. Bro, I've been watching things about this all day and I'm so glad I dropped from the internet for like 6 years. Yeah. Dude, it's crazy. It's wild. I said that being a dog is not a gender identity, and I torched. Like, I lost hundreds of followers over that take. It was crazy. Now, I was really mad, and I went really fucking hard, and I probably shouldn't have. That probably contributed a lot to it. But the only thing that people hammered me on was that take. I was like, there is an underlying fact of the matter that is being expressed. It's like back in the day, all of us bronies became ponies. Yeah. Yes, Astrobuff. Unironically, hundreds of followers torched because I said that dog is not a gender identity. Absolutely out of people's minds. It's crazy. Trans race argument. Okay. So we will. Yeah, I can tweet this. Let me get a. Wait. Change to copy with anybody or anyone with the link. Yeah, I can tweet that really fast. My trans race / otherkin argument. Bam. So it is on there. So yes, I got into this big fucking argument, and because I was saying that there is an underlying fact of the matter, and they said that that's transmed inherently, and then get this. I had people. I said, if we can identify as dog, only thing I have to complain about is how it's all leaking out of the USA, even over here. Yeah, I have to confess something to you, Stallion, and you're not gonna like it. Yes. I doubt it. I think you're pretty cool. I can pretty much stomach anything. But I said that dog isn't a valid gender identity, right? And I said, if this is true, then we're just a couple years away from the helicopter memes becoming a reality, that people like will unironically identify as a helicopter. And it's like, are we really wanting to foster that environment? And then I found somebody that popped up in my timeline in lefty circles that said that we were going to, that yes, unironically, if you completely and seriously feel your gender identity is that of an attack helicopter and feel most comfortable being referred that way, you are valid. Oh. I have never heard that before. Your intelligence is turning me on, low-key. That's funny. I've never heard that before. So anyway, that's perfectly fine. I don't know why I wouldn't like that. One time I was going through a McDonald's drive-thru, and this really very super gay guy was hitting on me in the drive-thru. It was fucking awesome. It's actually a thing. Yeah, I know it's a thing. What do they call that? Sapiosexual or some shit like that. Anyway, this tweet triggered me so bad. I was like, you people are out of your minds if we are going to get to the point where we're going to identify as attack helicopters. And I was like, I don't believe you. I just don't believe you. I do not believe that you would be okay with this. So I wrote out a Twitter thread coming out as heligender to test this theory. And I included screen caps of all these people telling me that it was wrong to criticize people for identifying as a dog. I am angry at animal gender people, blah, 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 blah. And all this other nonsense. And believe it or not, I was right. Because people lost their fucking minds. I have blocked pretty much everybody that has ever had any problems with this. But this tweet has over 16,000 views. It has been engaged with over 1,000 times. Like a huge, giant influx of people talking mad shit about this. And I'm like, I knew it. You guys tell me one thing, and I'm calling you out on this, and they all get mad. I knew that they were. So this is all the proof that I needed, that this whole otherkin is trans nonsense, that people know exactly what I'm talking about. There is somebody that I retweeted earlier. Let's see here. This one. Femboy philosophy. I am sorry, I love all y'all, but otherkin isn't a real thing. Animals are not human identities in the same way genders are. If you want to roleplay as a fox or whatever, that's chill, but don't invalidate trans people by comparing these two things. Of course, this person didn't get absolutely fucking roasted, but I will run with that. Where can I access the thing again? On my Twitter. I just tweeted it. You can have at it. It's in a Google Doc on my Twitter. Which should be a link in the description. It should be a link in the description for that. I can't see my own description right now. But yes. So the trans race argument. I know that trans race isn't in good faith, but just to summarize this real quick, trans race, the only way to exclude trans race is to recognize that there is an underlying fact of the matter being expressed. And if we exclude trans race, that necessarily means we have to exclude otherkin. Now, I've heard people say that otherkin is a spiritual thing, that they don't literally believe that they are animals, which is worse, because LGBTQ is not a religious organization. So anybody that has a spiritual feeling, I have the right, guilt-free, bigot-free, to reject whatever they believe. If somebody comes to me and says, Jesus is king, I am perfectly within my right to just outright disagree and just be like, I don't think so. I don't agree to that. I don't believe that. You can do you, and that's perfectly fine, but I don't believe that, right? And so, but it certainly wouldn't be queer phobic for me to not believe that Jesus is king, you know? We have fostered an environment on Twitter where if I say a thing, then disagreeing with that or criticizing that makes me queerphobic, transphobic, all this other nonsense. And it's crazy. It's crazy to me. So hopefully, I'll be able to talk to Know Nothing TV. That would be just so fucking great if I could get on to talk to him about this and see if he can take down this argument, or at least say that it's perfectly solid and he won't be able to steel man it any further. That would also be great. So that is pretty much all I have to say about that. I appreciate you all joining me. We will probably have more content. I'm going to try to come up with something to do tomorrow night, if I can. We might be back. But this is really what I wanted to talk to, is that Ben Shapiro has been talking a lot about trans people, and he's wrong about every fucking thing, and he's an idiot. And then this trans race meme, and then the otherkin meme as well. So we appreciate y'all joining me. We will see you all on the next one. I have a topic, I think. Okay, go ahead. What pray tell should we discuss? I can't check my notifications because sometimes people like tag me in porn, so we don't want to see that pop up on the timeline. So let's hear it, Astrobuff. What do we got? What is the topic? We don't need this anymore. We don't need this anymore. But yeah, low info griffer train wrecks is the train wrecks topic was buck breeding trailer, but tomorrow, of course. Buck breeding, is that like the buck breaking meme? Oh yeah, I've searched it before. I remember somebody asked about buck breaking. The thing about buck breaking is that there's I don't really have a take. I don't really have anything to say. Oh, directed by, oh my God, Tariq Nasheed. Oh my God. No, you're fine. I don't really have a take about buck breaking. There's no take. I have nothing to say about it. I have nothing to say about Tariq Nasheed. I also have nothing nice to say about Tariq Nasheed. Now you do. He's Tariq Nasheed is absolutely a piece of shit, up and down, side to side. He is a terrible, awful human being, and so I don't know anything about this, and I definitely don't have a take about buck breaking. Like it's one of those things that it's like, duh, it's bad. I just want to see you roast Tariq, Kevin Samuels, and Umar Johnson. Like, is it it's a film. Oh, Jesus. As a new threat to black masculinity rises, Tariq K-Flex Nasheed joins forces in this documentary to uncover the hidden agenda behind it. Oh, God. And that's one of my problems with Tariq Nasheed, is that he sounds no different than anybody else, like talking about the Jews or some shit like that. It's, ugh, God. Let's just...
This isn't some tourist attraction. We're in an actual musical.
Please, God, no.
We're stuck here
It's
forever.
so unfortunate.
We found our way out of IKEA.
It's so unfortunate that, what is that? It's so unfortunate that, like, I think that was, I don't know who was Peel and who was Key, to be honest.
Have to understand that buck breaking is a show of power. It's a show of dominance. So we can't talk about buck breaking without talking about power.
When we look at the domination of black people by the dominant society, what we are in essence seeing is that this society wants to ensure that we are not able to act.
That's pretty fucking burst. There was a Black Lives Matter mural on the street of in Tulsa for the longest time. I say the longest time. It was only like a couple of weeks, but they had this huge, giant Black Lives Matter mural painted up Greenville, I think it's called. Black Wall Street is what we all call it anyway. It was painted all the way up Black Wall Street, and it was really fucking cool. And then some asshole came by and drove over it and poured black paint all over it, and then the city came in and made them paint it back over, and now it doesn't say Black Lives Matter anymore. And it sucks, but I thought it was pretty based and not cringe, because that street isn't really long or whatever. It's not like this, but yeah.
Actually mete out that thing that makes humans exist, and that is creating families and procreating.
See, psychologically, when we're talking about the sexualizing of our people, primarily from the dominant society or the system of white supremacy, it had to be established in a very impinging way from the mental state.
This whole notion that masculinity is somehow...
Oh my God! Nobody is saying that masculinity is toxic. They're saying toxic masculinity is bad. Like, I don't understand how many times people have to repeat that before people will internalize and understand it. Like, there are toxic elements to masculinity. The idea that if somebody steps on my fucking shoe, that I have to break all their teeth out, that's toxic masculinity. Like, people, oh my God, it's really super simple.
Toxic and detrimental to society is nothing but an attempt to emasculate black malehood.
It's clearly an agenda. If you have...
What's wrong with this? He getting down. Like, who cares?
Black malehood.
It's clearly
like he's getting it.
If you have two eyes in your head and you're able to see...
We can teach black history and LGBTQ history at the same time. In fact, we should. Yes. Why not?
You can see that it's an agenda, and it's an agenda to decrease our population.
Oh my God.
It's always been about destroying the black family. The family's the foundation of a people.
The heterosexual black male is last on the pecking order here in America.
Give me a fucking break. That is so not true. If we were really gonna lay out a hierarchy, right? Black trans women experience more violence, more rapes, more sexual violence than literally any other demographic on the planet. Like, it is unreal the amount of bullshit that those people go through. You know you're mad when you're putting scary music behind someone's mad skills at dancing? Yeah.
If you're just a heterosexual black man, how are you gonna beat the case? Because when you show up to court, when you show up to the job interview, when you show up to wherever, you coming in here as a heterosexual black man, you have no power.
When Mark Twain confessed that we white people grind.
Because that's, I mean, it's not that they're saying something that's not true, but it's not like a conspiracy. You know, it's just that there are systems that were, generated from a racist place. So you're going to end up with racism in those systems. It doesn't even require individual racist actors. It doesn't require an agenda driven by someone. It's just the general direction that people are going in.
Ground the manhood out of the Negro. Why ground the manhood out of the Negro?
Oh, Mike, okay, before they showed him.
Ground the manhood out of the Negro.
I was just hearing Uncle Ruckus. Like,
why ground the manhood out of the Negro? Because it's black masculinity.
It sounded like Uncle Ruckus. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if that's racist, but it does. He sounded just like him. They grounding the masculinity out the Negro. Like, bro, they're using lists of facts to build up the BS they're about to say. Yeah, for sure.
Because
Tariq Nasheed is extremely talented at taking a bunch of facts that aren't really connected together and telling a story with it without actually connecting them together. It is, and I'm glad you said that. A spoonful of sugar, yes.
It's black masculinity that most exposes the fraud of white masculinity.
We as What does that even mean? Black masculinity exposes the fraud of white masculinity. I don't know what that means.
The progenitors of culture, the ones who are the fathers and mothers of civilizations, who taught all people, who people look to for social cues, whether they want to realize it or not. I think they feel if they can get us to adapt to it, they can get everybody to adapt to it.
I mean, that's true though. Worst part coming up. Oh no. Okay, but that's true though. If you're talking about America's leading, like, #1 cultural export, it's gonna be like black culture. It's gonna be like rap music and the dances and all that shit. Everything that like is invented by black people gets appropriated by white people and then sold everywhere. That's the like one of the problems with that. Like when we're talking about legitimately bad cultural appropriation, we're talking about like has anybody ever heard of what is it? What is her name? Holy shit. Big Mama. Oh my God, I'm just gonna have to Google it. Big Mama Thornton. I had to Google it, you know, and I've told this story about 1,000,000 times and I still forget. Big Mama Thornton wrote Hound Dog in 1952. That's her song. And then Elvis stole it, and then Elvis is now famous for singing Hound Dog. But it was Big Mama Thornton. That is an example of harmful cultural appropriation, is taking from other cultures and assimilating it into your own culture and then claiming it as your own without any credit given, and while continuing to marginalize the less dominant, or the underclass or the underculture or whatever.
If anybody should have a problem with European males, it should be the European female, because everything the European male has ever learned to do to us, he first practiced on his own woman.
We need resources in education. We need resources in labor. We need resources.
That's actually called stealing, for sure.
Resources in politics. We need resources in medical. We need resources in so many things, but they ignore that and they put millions and even billions of dollars to tell us that you need to really embrace your LBGT side. So these people have an agenda, and it's up to us to understand what the agenda is.
But I don't think that anybody is telling, like, no one's telling black people you have to do this or whatever. Like, I fail to see black people being targeted by this. In fact, most black people that I know are very culturally conservative, socially conservative rather. They tend to be quite religious, and they tend to be quite conservative. I'm looking at you, Bluegrass, taking my music and never calling us back. Yeah, giving us, yeah. Like, no one, I don't understand. There's nobody. I just don't think that when he said LGBT, that was the worst part of the video. Yeah, when he said that, like, you know.
So,
because then we end up in this, like, what is this fucking, like, the strings back in the background?
These people have an agenda.
They have this idea that, like, being gay and black is, like, super bad or some shit like that. No LBGT. Oh, I got you.
And it's up to us to understand what the agenda is.
What the agenda? So disappointing, dude. Like, this is not anything that we haven't heard before from white people, by the way. This is going to be all the exact same shit that we've heard, where they have where white people are saying that they're breaking down the family structure and all this other shit, and they just want because you'll see white supremacists complain about how they want all of us to be gay and that they want to infect us with the trans in order to stop producing children so that the black and brown people can outbreed us and take over the country or some crazy shit like that. Bro, I just don't get where that mindset comes from. I don't know either. I really don't understand. Like I said, if anybody anyone at all wants to be gay or like try it out or whatever, just to find out that you're not gay. That's perfectly fine too. But this on its face just sounds like a bunch of nonsense. That we would be. This is basically just the same nonsense that we hear all the time. It's like, don't these idiots realize that? Yeah, they don't realize that it's white supremacy pushed as like black separatism. And that's what I find a lot, especially with Tariq Nasheed, and why I think he's such a disgusting piece of shit, is because he probably doesn't realize that he sits around and pushes white nationalist talking points all the time. He calls it black separatism, and all the Nazis that follow his page sit around and go, yep, we should absolutely do that. Yes, you are absolutely right. White people and black people are fundamentally incapable of integrating and living in the same world. And we should absolutely segregate the races again. Yep, absolutely. And then the white supremacists say, the gays are coming for your kids, and they're going to turn your kids gay, and then all the white people are going to die out, and the black and brown people are going to take over, and then you have black people saying the exact same thing on the other side, and it's like, it has nothing to do with you being black or white. This is strictly driven by your hatred of the LGBTQs, strictly and only, and I just wish people were fucking honest about that. And it's really annoying, but I said, I have no take about book breaking, and then I rant for 15 minutes about after watching the shit. Anyway, so is it like not growing up around these things? I want to say it's probably that being from Ireland, like I never really seen any of these, as we were all too busy hating the English. Yeah, it's weird, man. A lot of people will like sit around and like try to otherize some group. And right now, it's the transes are really, really catching a lot of bullshit for basically no reason. So anyway, we appreciate your time. It is like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I have to get up and clean the fucking house in the morning. But thank you, Astrobuff, for the extra segment, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.